Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Could I ask Imtiaz about the beautiful piece that she had on Radio 4, which was God Loves a Drunk?
All right.
And it was such a moving piece, and in a way that I've never heard drink talked about before. So what was the inspiration and the connections?
Well, this was a poem called, a program called Something Understood, which goes on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock in the morning, and then it's repeated, I think, the next day. And it's really, I was invited to take any subject I wanted to and speak around it. But it is a kind of a spiritual program. But then you can interpret spirit in any way you want. So I chose... I don't even drink. Not much. I mean, I like the smell of a little sniff of wine with dinner, but I actually don't even drink. But there was something about that idea. I began the other way around. You have a theme and you work songs and poems around it. But I decided to work the other way. I chose my favorite songs and bits and pieces before I began and worked backwards and worked my theme around the songs. So the song I was obsessed with at that moment was Joni Mitchell's A Case of You. I don't know if any of you know it. I could sing it. I could drink a case of you and still be on my feet. And to me, that was such a great line of love and longing. And I really, really wanted to use that song in the program. So I worked my whole theme around it. It was just great fun to do. And then I found songs like God Loves a Drunk and the Baudelaire and all kinds of, things where you find that the idea of intoxication is a kind of bringing of your spirit out of yourself. It's a kind of loss, a kind of deliberate letting go of the self to a kind of freedom. And that took me to Sufis and Sufi dancing, trance, the trance of, and Rumi's poems, the idea of some kind of cosmic whirling.
What I should have said in my introduction, of course, that Imtiaz was recently on Desert Island Discs, is a regular on Radio 4, and of course won the Queen's Gold Medal for Poetry in 2014. So,
but I'm glad you heard that program. I was pleased with it.
All around the world.
Okay. Yes?
Can you hear me at all? Great,
Yes.
lovely,
Yeah.
it's on. Thank you very much, so beautiful, absolutely beautiful, Imtiaz, and everybody, gorgeous to hear. Imtiaz, when you were reading, I couldn't help but think of Charles Simich's observation that poems are other people's photographs in which we recognise ourselves, or poems are other people's snapshots in which we recognise ourselves. And there was something about I guess my question to you and the musicians is very much about process. You are translating grief into art, as you say so eloquently within your poems. I wonder if you can tell us about that process of distilling this enormous experience into language and finding a language for that experience. And the musicians, you taking the text that has been given you and the process of translating that into song.
Lovely question, thank you. I think when you take something intensely personal like grief, there has to be a point where it lifts itself out of just being about you and a kind of wallowing and becomes something else. The other thing I found was that when it came to writing about loss and grief, it turned into poems which were not about loss, but about love. Because in the end, grief is about something that you love, which may have disappeared. So it really became poems about life and love, as you can see from the I Swear, the different ways that you show someone you love them. So they were love poems in the end. And that was a way that I could lift them out of a kind of, the self-pity of grief into something else. And then, of course, once it's on the printed page, once it's gone out of my hands, then it belongs to everyone. And I hope that everyone brings their own life to it. And what you did today was just so far beyond. I can maybe pass it to you then, how you took over.
I was going to say, do you want to do your thing?
Only joking.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, Rommi, the music's, the lyrical content's amazing. It's beautiful, and at that point, I think for us writing the music, the best way to approach that is to just improvise with melodies and chord progressions. So depending on the mood, we kind of establish 2 minor chord progressions, and with kind of set patterns. But it's all about feel, as opposed to let's get this structure. It's about spirit. It's about what comes out and what really manifests. So I think Rob and I and Jonnie, the 3 of us, we work so well together. We've known each other for years, but there's that kind of improvisation really does happen, and we record everything we do. We listen back, and we pick the best moments, really. Yeah.
I think so the way a session would go in developing with poetry, and it's nice, what's so nice about it from our perspective is that you get to, a lot of the time when you're writing your own things, and I'm sure you have this experience as well, is that you're constantly filtering kind of, okay, that works, that doesn't work, that communicates that doesn't, that does this, that does that. And actually someone has already gone through that filter, that process, and they've almost, your job is more about figuring out either what you think they're trying to communicate or what resonates with you, I guess, what you see, what you recognize from yourself in the poems. But also, for example, the pomegranate song, which is actually called Warning, the poem, we really just wanted to sort of do more of a conversation musically between 2 voices, and the perspective that we took it from was more of the idea of that this pomegranate represents a person, and that we have people in our lives who we have to kind of break through their hardness and perhaps their undesirable, obvious things to find the sweetness beyond that. And that may or may not have been what it was about, but for us it was like, it's a lot of the time as a musician you're looking for something relatable, you're looking for something that you can turn into a connection. And Arc as well, which is my favourite, which is the last song, the Do You Hear My Luster on the Line one, the actual voice memo recording of that song, we improvised exactly as you heard it today. Yeah, we did it in 1 take. And so sometimes with a song, with a piece of work, you'll get a vibe and you basically just learn the voice memo.
And then it took me about 2 hours to learn that first time. It's just a release, you improvise. And then, so that's that.
But it's interesting you say that, because so much of poetry, and as a poet you would know that a lot of the time we're having conversations with other poets, with other voices. We're speaking to as I was speaking to Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was speaking to me. We are able to have these conversations across centuries. And in this case, we were able to speak to each other without even having met. And then you were, speaking to each other and making something. So out of that conversation, something very different appears, very different from what I had originally thought it was going to be. Something probably that was unexpected to all of us. I would also like to say that one of the things that was lovely for me is to hear the respect paid to the words, because a lot of singers take the words and go somewhere else, but you can't hear the words. For a poet, it is really, really good when you can hear the words.
Sorry, we were actually warned.
Not warned, not warned.
You better do justice to
Him said, make sure you pronounce every syllable, and that was the request.
But the response I got was, we always honour the words. Yes. So I was told off.
I think one of the reasons that we've been included in the project is that we, some people in this room may actually know this, but Stella runs Caution Collective, and we work with songwriters a lot of the time. But most of the time that's about actually working with people who already have a musical idea in their mind and are kind of, you're assisting in leading, or you're helping them develop their writing in a more one-to-one coaching kind of way. And what was nice about this, and also incredibly terrifying, is that you just got what was basically a massive wad of poems, and it was like, yeah, turn some of these into music. And that was in your brain, you're kind of like, okay. But you know, it's all. I think this is one of the most nerve-wracking things we've ever done, mainly because you're almost kind of turning it a little bit into your own thing. But we absolutely love lyrics, and I'm sure you'll all agree, you know, that the words that have been chosen have obviously been chosen so carefully, and it was really important to, even though we were transforming it into music, to support the words and not warp them. Yeah.
But I think it is true that once I let the words go, whatever you had done with it, it was your right to do it. You know, I think that people who take script and turn it into something else, cross art forms, then it becomes your right. So don't be afraid next time.
For the next
20 poems, you don't have to be afraid.
I'd also like to say that we've also spent about five years now working with Alchemy, working with Nima, and she's given us many opportunities to do this. So we've had practice. So you know we've worked on like 4 previous projects that has actually led to this moment. So I think we're prepared.
And I think that refers back to what Rommi was saying about process. That's part of the process, isn't it? It's all the projects and all the things you do together. It builds.
It's so true.
Do we have time for another question? I'm looking at the stewards because I know that. Yes. Yes. A quick final question.
Anybody got a question?
No, but Carl Hutton, so brand new that he gleams, new chief executive of Leeds Library, is here, and I think he wants to invite you all to the different manifestations of the haunting in the Leeds Library. Is Carl here? Yes, there he is. Yeah. And whilst we're taking the microphone to him, I'm so pleased that Steve Manthorpe and Rommi are here because they're also part of the Haunting Project. And Rommi's poetry and Steve Manthorpe's carvings, especially the Haunted Doll's House, are absolutely beautiful. So over to you, Carl.
Thank you, Nima. On behalf of Leeds Library, thank you for everyone supporting the project, and thank you especially to Alchemy and all the artists that have made a big difference. For anyone that doesn't know about the Leeds Library, we're based on Commercial Street in Leeds. It's the oldest proprietary members' library in the country. Anyone that ever goes into the library falls in love with it. And I'd suggest that if you ever want to check it out, this project's a great chance to do that. So there's plenty of activities going on over the next few weeks. And it's a really good chance to check out one of the hidden gems, not just of Leeds, but probably the north of England in terms from a literature point of view and a books point of view. So, but thank you again.
I went there this morning and I was absolutely stunned. It's an incredible, beautiful old library in the heart of the city, and they even have coffee.